Whether or not you watch the Game Awards yourself, you definitely heard about it. If you follow video game stuff and you're watching this video, I'm sure you've seen something about the hullabaloo over the Game Awards 2023. Some people were upset at the winners. Some people were upset at how long the winners got to speak. Some people were upset at the whole thing entirely. And so I want to talk to you about how I think we can fix the Game Awards and the issues that some people maybe aren't really bringing to light that actually make this a difficult show. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hope you're doing fantastic. Let me just say, there were some nifty games announced. And let me also just say that I've watched just about every Game Awards, I think all 10 of them. I've been around the block many times, coming up on 34 years old this week, and I've been to a bunch of E3s, a bunch of PAXs, I've been to Gamescom, I've been to Summer Games Fest. I haven't been to the Game Awards, but I've watched them, and that's basically the same thing because there's nothing playable there. I think, in general, my feeling is like the loss of E3 really just detrimentally hurts every other event. But this is not a video about E3, it's about the Game Awards. And I think the Game Awards are an award show front-facing, but Winter Games Fest behind the curtain. Like, that's the first thing I think everyone needs to understand, is that the main point of the Game Awards, yes, is to acknowledge, celebrate, and dole out these awards to these very wonderful developers. But that can't exist without, obviously, all of the announcements and the hype, and the reason that I'd guess 95% of the people watch this show. And before we get to the gooey, delicious center of this video, let me point out that the Game Awards, one of the biggest problems is that they're usually completely missing 1/3 of the gaming industry. Nintendo typically chooses to sit the Game Awards out. And I know there's not like direct involvement from like Sony's on stage and then Microsoft's on stage, but we have plenty of Xbox games, plenty of PlayStation games, plenty of PC games, and wee few Nintendo Switch games. Pretty much zero Nintendo published games. We get a big announcement for God of War, right? Like, that's a big Sony IP, but Nintendo sits out. How do you have a Game Awards celebrating all of games where Nintendo, like, yes, they can win awards, I get that, but they're basically not involved. They don't want to be involved. They choose not to be involved. They've occasionally been involved, but to me, that feels like a big gaping hole. And maybe when we have a Switch 2 and we have more console parity and third-party titles can release across all systems, maybe it won't feel like a massive void. But as someone that loves Nintendo, the Game Awards instantly lose a good chunk of appeal because there isn't Nintendo to care about. And whether you view it as Game Awards or Winter Games Fest, Nintendo seems to have very little care of being a part of this, and that's very bizarre. And it's one of the things that caused E3 to crumble was the main platform holders pulling out and wanting to do their own thing. And so for a super successful Switch with a massive install base, it feels bizarre and not great that Nintendo typically sits this out, and our expectation is like Nintendo probably won't really be there in any substantial capacity. What? I know Keighley can't force them, but gotta find a way to work that out. These are the Game Awards, not the Sony, Microsoft, PC Awards. Nintendo needs to be a big part of this. But on top of that, awards for games are just way more difficult than anybody is giving credit for, or at least anybody that I've really seen. I think you have this issue where, movies have awards, games should have awards. Books have awards, games should have awards. TV shows have awards, games should have awards. Games as an industry is massive, so why would we not put ourselves on the same level as these other forms of media, because it's clearly achieved such a wide base of players, such a massive amount of money, and just universal popularity. But there's some things about games that are dramatically different that prevent an awards show from being really doable, at least in its current framework. What I'm talking about specifically is that games are freaking long. If you're told to go watch 10 movies to prepare for an awards show, that's probably taking you about 25 hours, even with today's extended runtime on many feature films. If you're given 10 books to go read, depending on how fast you read, you can probably get that done in 40 or 50 hours. If you're given 10 games to play, that could be 200 or 300 or 400 hours. The ask for everyone in an awards show to play all the games to accurately vote is insane. You can't possibly expect that all of the jurors, all of the voters have actually played everything, and so it really just mucks up the awards as a whole. Forget the whole thing about, is Jeff Keighley the right person? Should we be having more time for the developers to speak? Should there be announcements mixed in, or should there just be a separate Winter Games Fest? I'm talking just straight awards. An awards show is almost impossible to do at a level of quality that matches the other media, not because games are worse, not because the game's press is worse, not because the fans are worse, not because it's not good enough, but because the nature of games makes this nigh impossible. On top of the fact that games are insanely long to play through to get an accurate read on all the games in the different categories, you also have the issue of games have a diverse amount of content depending on how you play. Imagine if in a book there were side chapters that were optional to read. Imagine if in a movie you could press the right arrow to go to a side character's deeper background. In games, it very much depends on how you play, the experience you're going to come away with. If I mainline Spider-Man 2 versus if I go and do half the side quests versus if I 100% Spider-Man 2, I'm having a distinctly different experience. We cannot know what kind of experience the jurors had. Did they play the game as quickly as humanly possible and suck only 11 hours out of the experience? Did they dump the average 25, or did they play a full 40? We can't possibly know. And we have no way of equalizing the playing field as you can with a movie or a TV show where you say, hey, watch this TV show from start to finish, episode 1 to episode 9. There's not episode 9 A, B, C, D, episode 8 C, D, E, F, episode 5 B, C. Like, there aren't all of these optional pieces of content. And the shows themselves are not 400 episodes. They're 8. So we have this very difficult issue with any type of awards show. And I think that's part of the frustration that brews. And maybe people just aren't like really vocalizing that. Like, obviously, yes, it's commercialized. It seems like it's about money. And what do you know, if you're going to have a big show that's on big TV with big numbers, it's going to be about money. I can't really fault Jeff or the Game Awards for that. They need the sponsors to make the show exist, but I think it's the award show in general that really struggles. You've got these games that are very long, that have a diverse amount of content, and that you actually have to play. Now, I know people have different genre preferences when it comes to books or movies or TV shows as well, but there are elements of playing something, interacting, that cause even more confusion and commotion amongst the jury and how they play these games and who's having the same experience. And then, I've saved the biggest for last, people actually play games. You don't play a movie, you don't play a book. You can't run into a difficulty spike in a TV show. And look, I know that there's different genre preferences amongst connoisseurs of film or TV, but you don't run into like, this is hard. I mean, I guess some books are written for like young adults and some are written for grade schoolers, but that aside, all the jurors in a book awards show or a movie awards show are capable of watching the movie or reading the book. There's a chance that someone's experience of the game could be dramatically affected by the fact that they are not a great gamer, or they're a really great gamer, or they're too good, or they're not good enough. What I'm saying here is the experience of actually playing adds an element of subjectivity that I don't think can accurately be captured in a singular award winner. How do we properly evaluate these games to even have these awards mean something? And that's that other piece of the puzzle. How do you make these awards actually meaningful so people would tune in for the awards and not just for the announcements? It's difficult because everybody experiences these different. If you like a Dark Souls, Elden Ring type game, you may think Mario Wonder is not great. You like Mario Wonder, you may not think Elden Ring is great. You could compare any two games. I didn't mean to just pick those. You could do Spider-Man 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. There is such a distinct difference between playing something and interacting with the game itself versus passively watching or reading movie, TV show, book, that we're introducing a whole new element of subjectivity that I feel makes awards super diluted. When you're telling me that Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year, or Alan Wake 2 won Best Direction of the Year, or Mario Wonder won Best Family Game, I need to know so much more. I want to know exactly how long these people voting played for. I want to know what kind of gamer they are. It feels like it's impossible to truly capture a winner when we have so many variables at play that just aren't at play for other forms of media. It's not to say games are harder to judge or shouldn't be judged. It's just to say it is very different and it is very much more subjective at a level that does not compare with TV, movies, books. Therefore, the only solution I can see is A, you don't have awards, because frankly, it doesn't matter. Much more so than any other type of media, you're going to like the kinds of games you like, and those will be your favorites. It's much harder to objectively say, Fortnite is great if you don't like multiplayer shooters. Get my drift? The alternative, if you don't want to just scrap awards, is I think you need to have multiple winners. I think you need to expand the categories, more nominees, and more winners. I think you need to have 3 winners per category. And that might sound absolutely insane, and maybe that further dilutes the value of these awards, but then we would get a more wide range of opinion, a more wide range of appeasement, and a more wide range of celebration, because it wouldn't be trying to narrow in on one game that we don't even know if everybody played, that we don't know how they played it, and we don't know their preferences or if they could even finish it. Like, you literally might not be able to beat the game, and then how can you properly evaluate it? What we basically have with the Game Awards is people that love a certain game playing it a ton and then voting for it. So we're doing favorites, we're not doing best. You could argue that every award show is favorites, not best, but I would argue that games more than anything else is favorites over best. And I think it's so subjective and so opinion-based, that's why these awards seem to have the weight of a feather. I don't feel like anybody really cares a ton about the awards, and maybe that's what informs the skewed nature of the show, that it's mostly Winter Games Fest and a little bit game awards. It's mostly new announcements and trailers and world premieres. It's a little bit speeches and rolling through the winners. So, is it the way the Game Awards are run? Or is it the Game Awards in itself? Awards for games, that's something that I don't know can be successfully done. I don't know that there is a great solution for how you do a gaming awards show, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. The fact that the jury, the judges, the jurors, the voters cannot be expected to play everything at the same level and the same depth. The fact that when compared to other forms of media, we just do not have the same level playing field for voters and for votes. The votes are not equal. The votes are not the same. A vote from someone that played 300 hours of a game is different than a vote from someone that played 30 hours. And maybe you say that just means the game wasn't good for them, but what if the game got better then? It's like watching a TV show and dipping out on episode 3, but no, you'd never do that. Watching a movie, but dipping out after 30 minutes, no, you'd finish it because it's finishable. There's nothing obstructing you. There's no obstacle in your way. It makes awards very hard. I also think it makes things hard that E3 has dissolved and everybody wants to do their own show. Everybody wants their own live stream, their own reveal, their own time in the sun. Everybody wants to have their own piece of the puzzle, and so we have diluted everything and spread it across tons of months, tons of events, tons of live streams, and what we're left with is lackluster presentations at every turn. It's just common math. You have 10 great announcements. You split them into 10 shows. Those shows suffer. You have 10 great announcements and they're all in one show. Wow, that feels absolutely mega. Or it doesn't because they don't have 10 great announcements. But spreading out the shows doesn't make more announcements. It just makes more dilution. And you could argue that there's games that are ready to be shown at the Game Awards that weren't ready to be shown at Summer Games Fest. Sure, that's fine. But I firmly believe that a lot of our displeasure with some of these events, and for me, the reason that I don't really care about going to actual in-person events anymore, is because it is so diluted that each individual event is so light on exciting, new, worthwhile content that you're left just really spread thin. And it's probably not really great to go to any of them in the way of like playing a ton of games and evaluating. If you're going for the experience, you're going for the vibes, you're going for the friends, you're going for the people, that's fine. But I'm talking about strictly playing the games, witnessing the event, watching the showcase. They're all suffering because we've spread them out so much. So even the Game Awards that skewed heavily towards announcements, it is not what it could be if the Game Awards were at E3. It would be better if they were at E3 because then maybe they could be ran by a big governing board of publishers and developers and they wouldn't need to have tons of money and make it like, I don't know. I think the Game Awards as a whole is a faulty idea, not because the intentions are bad, but because there's no real great way to do it. And it probably should just become Winter Games Fest and maybe we do some community polls or we have multiple winners. But as it stands right now, these awards will continue to be not very meaningful to the viewers, and the announcements will continue to be the draw, but not enough of a draw because you're spreading them out. So we're left in a really bad state where we have more events that all are lackluster. And some may disagree, some may love them. I thought this year's was probably the best Game Awards in terms of announcements and new content. But as a whole, as a collective whole, Game Awards, all of them, there's been a lot of disappointment. And it ties into the three things I've discussed here. One, you're missing out on Nintendo, which is 1/3 or more of the industry, especially considering the grand success of the Switch. You've got games as a strange media that's very hard to evaluate and very hard to establish an equal playing field for jurors voting. And then you have this idea that we're going to spread everything out, which just dilutes and you need to make money. So it's really hard. I don't envy Jeff or anyone else that's trying to attempt this, but I'd love to see somebody else attempt it, a different take. Jeff is the face of video games, and I don't know that we all asked for that or wanted. He stepped forward. He took charge, but maybe it's time that somebody else tried or somebody else did their own take or introduced a new idea. I don't know. But I do know that as it is right now, I don't think the Game Awards work really all that much at all. But please let me know your take in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. I thought this was like a really fun discussion to have with myself, so I wanted to have it with you. It's a lot better than mumbling around my house. So thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Until next time, SwitchForce out.